Hello and welcome to JSB Talks Digital, the podcast for marketers, digital change champions, and those of you bringing your skills into the digital age. I'm Joanne Sweeney-Burke and this podcast is brought to you by Digital Training Institute. In this special show coming to you from St John's Castle in Limerick, I discuss fake news and its impact on the media and PR industry. I'm attending a seminar organised by the National Union of Journalists and the Public Relations Institute of Ireland as part of Local News Matters Week, which celebrates quality local journalism. Coming up in the podcast, in social media news, I take a look at Facebook stories. I interview Colm Ward from the NUJ, Byrne, journalist with the Clare Champion newspaper, and Cian, Connaughton, president of the PRII, about the implications of fake news on their industries. In shoutouts, the three most common types of fake news. In JSB's column, how to combat fake news in the digital age. And find out what Fake Follower Audit tool saved my working week.
Social media news.
Facebook Stories has arrived and those of us in the social media industry are wondering how it will impact Snapchat and Instagram stories. The constant feature bombardment from Facebook to rival the other social networks provides popcorn-fueled watching. However, will it really impact Snapchat or Instagram? Snapchat and Instagram have loyal users and are growing steadily each quarter. I'm a huge Snapchat fan, but I have to admit, since Insta Stories came on stream, I'm finding myself over there more and more and less on Snapchat. I'm also using Facebook Messenger Day, which is similar to the Stories feature, but inside the Messenger app. This was way too public for my personal story snaps, as I realised that my Facebook friends, and believe me, I have more friends on Facebook than I do collectively on Snapchat and Instagram. So I realised all my friends were getting inside the JSB track. So I'm very conscious when using Messenger Day. I haven't got Facebook Stories just yet, but I will develop a plan for it when I do. Stories isn't available to everyone, so check whether you have it by closing out of the app and making sure you've upgraded to the latest version before you log in again. If you still don't see a change to your feed, you may just have to wait like me. There are two ways to access stories. Scroll to the top of your feed to view your friends' stories and create your own, or just swipe right from any screen. You can't like stories, but you can reply to them. So let me know if you like Facebook stories and your impression versus Snapchat and Instagram stories. In today's show, I speak to professionals in the media and PR industry about fake news and how it's impacting them.
Interviews.
Colm Ward, you're the chairperson of Irish Southwest from the National Union of Journalists, co-organising the event on fake news today in St John's Castle in Limerick. What was the motivation to firstly organise the event?
Well, I suppose it ties in with an NUJ campaign called Local News Matters, and that's about highlighting the value of local media, of quality local media. And obviously there are a lot of challenges at the moment facing local media, whether it's the decline in print sales and print readership. And I suppose one of those challenges is what we call fake news. And again, the sense that people are losing faith in a lot of the news they're consuming. They're getting a lot of it online, and the ability maybe to distinguish what's fact and what's got serious journalistic background from what's being put out maybe by sinister fake news sites are more often just, I suppose, just lazy, kind of journalism or, kind of social media driven clickbait, if you like, that kind of thing. So we just thought that a discussion on fake news would tie in with the Local News Matters Week. So we got a great panel of speakers. We had Cian Connaughton from the PR Institute of Ireland, who co-sponsored the event with us. We had Emma Kelly from RT's education correspondent, and we had Fiona McGarry from Clare FM, who's a very respected regional journalist. So each of them were able to give their own perspective on the discussion and on where, I suppose, media is going right now in Ireland.
So in terms of journalists, I used to work as a journalist, and yes, it is many years ago, but a journalist is a highly respected professional. And, there's that sort of kudos that, if a journalist says something, then it must be true. And if it appears in a TV station, radio outlet or print newspaper, then it's true. Do you think that journalists are now competing with new digital influencers?
Oh, there's no doubt there is an element of competition there. But that's not to say necessarily that, a journalist, for example, couldn't be a digital influencer. I think, one of the themes that's emerging in, I suppose, the online sphere and the digital sphere, it's about credibility and it's about trust. While we talk about digital influencers, it's a relatively new phenomenon, and maybe it hasn't evolved to the point yet where people can start really, determining whether they can trust someone who just happens to have 50,000 or 500,000 or whatever it might be followers. Whereas coming from, I suppose, the print media background, as I do originally, you're trained in a certain way, and you're trained to analyse the facts and to question what you're being told and so forth. And there's, I suppose, we live in a world where institutions, in a way, are becoming. There's a lot more cynicism about institutions, of which I suppose the traditional media is one. But I suppose, to a certain extent, that institutional background does give you an element of trust and credibility that was there, and we would hope that, as journalists, we need to work hard to ensure that credibility remains, so that we can stand on our own merits and say, well, we have researched this story, we have put the work in, and we're not just taking what we're being told as fact, and we have transparency in terms of how we work and so on and so forth. So I think that's probably the challenge for, if you like, traditional media now, and for journalists who work in that area, and also for journalists who, I suppose, are moving into the digital sphere too.
So journalism still has a massive role to play. I guess the guardians of the truth is essentially what a journalist has been and still is, and I think that role is ever more relevant today. So Colm, thank you so much. Well done in the event, and thanks for talking to us.
Interview.
Carol Byrne, you're a journalist with the Clare Champion and attended the seminar today on fake news. From your perspective, what do you think is the main problem around trying to combat fake news as a journalist?
Okay, there are a lot of issues, I suppose, really that present itself when it comes to fake news. A lot of what I find in my role is a lack of resources. We struggle to meet all of the deadlines that we have between our regular markings like council meetings, court reports. We've reduced staff numbers, and then we're also expected to disseminate across social media platforms and also websites. So there is a lot of reliance on the journalist now to be a jack of all trades, and in that kind of environment we're caught in a situation where we do find ourselves relying on general press releases, on I suppose soft news, and there is this lack of time to source the information and to fact check. And while everybody in journalism strives to reach the truth, there is this acceptance that, look, this will fill a hole, this will do. And I think the more that happens, I suppose the more it impacts local news. And also, I suppose there's another problem as well in media ownership. So currently I work for a family-run newspaper, which is a huge advantage in this current environment. And unusual, absolutely. And I suppose we set our own news agendas, and we do strive for accuracy. But we have a situation now where local newspapers are being run by big conglomerates, and there is less of an emphasis on truth and more on populist views and on furthering the specific news organisations' agendas, and that has to change. And I think that's something that we have to look at. I think our politicians need to look at, and I think the communities, the people themselves who consume news, need to look at that as well.
And also, media outlets are commercial entities. So people who are making decisions in boardrooms are interested in the bottom line. We're also living in the age of social media and clickbait, where you can actually amass massive amounts of numbers to your website if you have the right headline and have the story. Do you think that is compromising and diluting news too, where decision makers are looking at the vanity metrics and not looking at the quality of the story?
Yeah, there's the vanity metrics that are involved, all right, but you also have to... you have to look at the bottom line. If they're about generating money, this is free news, and you have to say at what point do you start making money out of that. And yes, you can disseminate all of this populist opinion, but and it may help your readerships, but really what people want when they turn to a news organisation is they want truth, they want fact. Yes, they might want the soft news elements thrown in as well, but I think there's a real need for people to kind of, I suppose, just not expect things that for free, and to require there be some investment in what they produce and some investigation into what they're producing. As regards social media and digital platforms, I think nobody has found the formula to make money from them yet. If and when they do, I think it'll be a different business, but there is no formula yet, and until that's found, I think we're in a very difficult market, really.
Carol Byrne, thanks for talking to me.
Thank you, Joanne. Thanks.
Interview.
Cian Connaughton, you are the President of the Public Relations Institute of Ireland and co-organisers of the Fake News Seminar in Limerick today. What motivated you to organise this event?
So, a couple of things, Joanne. We obviously are very interested working in public relations to engage with journalists and the media, so I think it's a great opportunity to exchange views and really get to see what their interests are, what their take on such an important topic is. And then secondly, I think it's really important to provide events like this for institute members outside of Dublin. You know, the members of the Public Relations Institute work all around Ireland, all different types of communication areas, so it's really good that we're getting the chance to get down here to Limerick and hold a really attractive event. And then I suppose finally I'd say fake news is something that's really topical, and it's something that people, I think it's still a bit, one of the things that came out today was it's still a bit undefined as to exactly what fake news is. So I even, my understanding of fake news and all the variables at play and the factors that are kind of relating to it, I increased my knowledge of it in my preparation for this week, and then sitting in today I could see everyone else is kind of really just trying to get their heads around it, so it was great to get in and have a bit of a contribution at such a kind of an early stage when people are getting their head around it.
And I think it's actually one of the first big conversations that certainly I've come across around fake news in this country. We see it being spoken online in the UK and the US. It's maybe got more attention. But do you think that fake news is going to become a problem for Ireland, for the institutions of the state, for politicians, and even for us in the communications industry?
Look, I think one of the things that came out from today's discussions were that, fake news can encompass a lot of things, I suppose, depending on how you define it. But I think the more important issue rather than fake news is, the issue around the types of, I suppose, content that media is producing, the types of media people like, how relevant, and the types of, whether it's online, whether it's mobile, whether it's print, It's having a good and open debate about what type of media people want, and the pressures that are on media, and I suppose the way that communications professionals like ourselves interact with that, and so everyone's got a clear understanding of what the challenges are and what the best solutions then to propose are.
I think that the whole communications and even media industry is in complete flux at the moment. They're trying to transition to an online world. And do you think that fake news might become something of the past? I mean, one of the panellists said, we've always had fake news. We've had propaganda, myths, truths. Is it just that we're in the age of digital that suddenly it's getting more traction and, a lot more traffic?
Yeah, I would look at fake news. I would look on fake news as being that phenomenon where I suppose you've had stories being produced in for argument's sake, or to give you one example, Eastern Europe, which are clearly, totally made up out of thin air, no factual basis at all, and then sold to make money online. That is my definition of fake news. I suppose there's a lot of other wider issues about how technology is introduced. One of the NUJ members I know today was talking about, sure, anyone can be a journalist and produce content now with the age of Periscope, with Twitter, with Instagram, and that's a fair comment. But I think one of the key points that I'd stress is that professional bodies like the PRII, like the NUJ, we have standards, clear standards about honesty, integrity, values, truth, and that's standards that we clearly defined to our members subscribe to, and they make a real important contribution, whether it's the NUJ members or whether it's the PRI members, to holding those values true to whatever work they produce, whatever content they produce.
Cian Connaughton, thank you, and that's a very good point to, I guess, finish up with. I mean, I'm a content producer. I have, the podcast and the blog and the video blog as well on YouTube, but I still hold true to those NUJ and those PRI principles, that even though I'm a content producer not working for a media outlet, I want people to hear and to read and to watch the truth that I'm producing. And I think we all have a personal responsibility if we're contributing to stories online, whether it's on threads, on news blogs, or even on social media, that we all take that responsibility and share the truth and not the fake news. Thank you, Cian.
Shoutouts.
In this part of the show, I usually give shout-outs to brands, organisations or individuals whose work online is worth talking about. But in today's episode, I'm sharing the 3 most common types of fake news and how to distinguish between fake news and lazy or misleading reporting. But first, let's deal with the definition of fake news. The New York Times says that with a strict definition, fake news on the internet refers to a fictitious article which is fabricated with the deliberate motivation to defraud readers, generally with the goal of profiting through clickbait. PolitiFact described fake news as fabricated content designed to fool readers with the intent of making it go viral on the internet.
1.
Fake news websites deliberately publish hoaxes and misinformation to drive website traffic leveraged by social media. This creates an advertising opportunity because traffic equals commercial value. 2016 was the year of fake news and echo chambers. Echo chambers is a metaphorical description of a situation in which information, ideas, or beliefs are amplified or reinforced by communication and repetition inside a defined system, and in this case of the digital age, being spread on social media. Studies have shown that people are bound like glue to like-minded people on social media, and so our thoughts, our conversations, and our comments are similar to those who we are connected with. You see, people fall into online polarised tribes based on the information they consume and share.
2.
We need to distinguish fake news from satire, which has been around as long as democratic politics. Satire is defined as strong irony or sarcasm, but in news writing, it's used to promote a position, but using juxtaposition and humour. The Onion is probably the most famous satire news website. In Ireland, Waterford Whispers is a famous satire website and has built its business model on writing, sharing and promoting fake news in the knowledge that everyone knows it's fake. Its growing prominence in the digital age suggests that it has made some way into being considered mainstream news, especially as this news is widely shared on social media, given its deadpan humour.
3.
Misleading news designed to promote a specific narrative is probably the most damaging type of fake news. Hoaxes about US politics were among the top performing fake news content on Facebook in 2016. That's according to an analysis by BuzzFeed News. 23 of the 50 top performing fake news hoaxes they found on Facebook were focused on US politics. Overall, fake news about US politics accounted for 10.6 million of the 21.5 million total shares, reactions and comments. The top performing fake news story identified in the analysis by BuzzFeed News was a hoax from October that claimed President Obama had banned reciting the Pledge of Allegiance in schools. It was published by abcnews.com.co, a fake site made to look like ABC News. The Obama hoax generated more than 2.1 million shares, comments, and reactions on Facebook in just 2 months. BuzzFeed News used BuzzSumo to identify the top-performing Facebook content from 96 fake news websites, including the network of more than 40 sites exposed in its recent investigation. I've put a list of the top 50 hoaxes recorded by BuzzFeed News on the blog associated with this podcast. So what is our personal responsibility when it comes to fake news? As citizen journalists with access to social networks where we can self-publish, curate and share stories, news, fake or truth, we all must question everything we read and ensure that source is a reliable one. Don't be the bearer of fake news. Take time to carefully review what you like and share and understand that our actions on the social web will create reactions somewhere else. If you want to educate yourself on fake news, have a look at the list on Wikipedia.
JSB's column.
In today's column, I'm going to give you my perspective on how to combat fake news. Fake news is a big issue for many industries, not least policing, politics, public policy, and the media industry itself. So I've taken a closer look at how you can combat fake news, or even try to counteract its impact for you, your brand reputation, or your organisation. Firstly, monitor your brand for online mentions. If you are mentioned in a fake news article, you won't catch it unless you are monitoring the web for personal or brand mentions. Set up a Google alert in the first instance and request daily emails. If you are a large organisation or an individual holding a position of power or public office, you might want to invest in more robust software like electronic media monitoring. Secondly, do keyword research on big issues that reflect your work, offline and online. No matter what position you hold or what organisation you are working for, there will be a number of topical issues that you frequently discuss online, at conferences, internally, or in the media. You need to keep yourself aware of how these topics are being discussed online, the influencers leading the debates, and the direction of the discourse. This can inform you and your audiences on what you need to be saying to keep the truth to the top of the search engines and link to that live on the social networks. Thirdly, if fake news is published relating to you or your work, you must counteract its prominence on the search engines by writing the truth. I've spoken to people who believe that ignoring fake news and the fake news publishers is a good strategy. Personally, I don't. If you allow fake news to get momentum online, it will take the top positions on the search engines. If you hold a position of influence, whether it's public office, public policy, or even in the corporate world, you must publish the truth to try to counteract any fake news. Fourthly, educate your online tribe about your work and its value. One of the most powerful tactics we can use online is building a tribe of people who value our voice, value our work, and who value our truth. If and when you are subjected to a fake news slur, you can go directly to your community to correct the record. They will then become the vehicle to spread that truth. Fifth, report fake news to the search engines and social networks. While it is difficult and often cumbersome to report and get fake news taken offline, we still must screenshot, report, and use our good name to get fake news retracted. Facebook has started what it calls the Journalism Project, which is aimed at helping media outlets figure out how to use the web to improve their content and their business models. And now the company has committed to helping fund a separate effort aimed at rebuilding trust in the news. Fortune.com is reporting that Facebook became part of a $40 million effort called the News Integrity Initiative that is spearheaded by Craigslist founder and journalism advocate Craig Newmark. The initiative will fund research and projects related to improving news literacy and trust in journalism, as well as hosting events at which experts will discuss related issues. Number 6 in my list of tips. Engage traditional media in your truth. When you are responding to a fake news slur online, Reach out to the traditional media who may likely publish your truths. Remember, mainstream media requires a news angle and stories that are in the public interest or good enough to be of interest to the public and simply not self-serving to you. So make sure you have a hook. Leverage social media for truth is my 7th tip. The obvious way to try and combat fake news is to use social media to spread the truth. Using the hashtag #TruthMatters is a powerful way to encourage others to become word-of-mouth advocates for your truth. Number 8. Track metrics around fake news versus truth. Harness the power of data to gain actionable insights into the extent of discourse online on a story that has fake news and truth elements. This data will help inform your next steps. Number 9. Use video for best effect. Video is a highly pervasive content type, and it also is highly personalised. Talk directly down the lens of a camera, and this will help you connect emotionally with your audience and will show genuineness and authenticity. So develop a social and live video strategy to help you combat fake news. And finally, tip number 10. Develop a fake news policy and accompanying strategy for yourself or your organisation if you think that you may be targeted by fake news. Be sure to do the behind-the-scenes work now to prevent a crisis in the future. You will need a protocol and policy around how you will deal with fake news because it will be different for every organisation. If you want to discuss fake news, its potential impact on you or your organisation, then feel free to get in touch. Simply drop me an email to joanne@digitaltraining.ie.
Social media tool of the week.
The social media tool that saved my working week is Twitter Audit. Have you ever wondered how many fake followers you have on Twitter, or if anyone you are following has fake followers? In the age of transparency and truth-seeking, it's not a bad idea to audit your Twitter account. So I audited at Tweets by JSB, and from my 10,378 followers, I discovered that 9,745 are real and 633 are fake. I will now use another tool called Tweepy to delete the fake followers. Each audit takes a random sample of 5,000 Twitter followers for a user and calculates a score for each follower. This score is based on number of tweets, date of the last tweet, and the ratio of followers to friends. The tool uses these scores to determine whether any given user is real or fake. Of course, this scoring method is not perfect, but it's a good way to tell if someone with lots of followers is likely to have increased their follower count by inorganic, fraudulent, or dishonest means. Check your Twitter followers and find out how many are real and how many are fake. Log on to twitteraudit.com. Thanks for tuning into this episode of JSB Talks Digital. I want to thank the organisers of the Truth in the News seminar for organising such an important event. As always, I have everything discussed on today's show on my blog at digitaltraining.ie, including a video blog to go with the show. To ensure you never miss an episode of JSB Talks Digital, you can subscribe on your smartphone on iTunes or on Stitcher. You can also subscribe on SoundCloud. I'd love your feedback on this podcast, so be sure to tweet me your thoughts to @Tweets by JSB or post a comment on our Facebook page, Digital Training Institute. I'm Joanne Sweeney Burke. This is JSB Talks Digital. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.
JSB Talks Digital.